Imagine laughing at someone, and days later, knocking on that same person's door begging for help. That's what happened to Lauren Whitmore, a millionaire surrounded by luxury, power, and fake friends. One night during a lavish party, she humiliated her housekeeper in front of everyone. But fate, with its cruel sense of irony, decided to teach her the hardest lesson of all. Life always collects its debts, and sometimes, with interest. Introduction, Co. This is the story of two women the world placed on opposite sides. Lauren, the lady of the mansion, and Elena, the woman who quietly cleaned up her mistakes. One lost everything money could buy, while the other revealed the kind of value money could never touch. Get ready to dive into a story about pride, forgiveness, and the true meaning of wealth. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep watching real, emotional stories like this one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? The night in San Diego seemed to be made of gold. The ballroom of the Whitmore mansion gleamed beneath the crystal chandeliers, and elegant voices floated among glasses and restrained laughter. In the midst of all that shine, Elena Rivera crossed the room with cautious steps, holding a tray that weighed more from fear of error than from its actual load. The tension in her shoulders was almost invisible but deep, like someone who knows that one misstep could cost more than a month's salary. Then fate whispered its irony. A stumble, a slip, and the sharp sound of crystal shattering cut through the room. Conversation stopped. Laughter froze. Lauren Whitmore, at the center of the hall, turned slowly, her eyes as cold as the marble beneath her heels. Silence became a stage, and everyone waited for the spectacle of humiliation. These glasses are worth more than you earn in a month. The words dripped like poison wrapped in silk. A chorus of laughter followed, echoing among the columns and tapestries. Elena stood still for a moment, unsure whether to gather the shards or her pride. The tray slipped from her hand, and all that remained was the muffled sound of her breath, trying to stay steady. With quiet grace, she knelt and began cleaning the floor. The reflection of the lights and the tears she refused to shed betrayed the pain hidden beneath her composure. Not a word left her lips. The shame was heavy, but her restraint was heavier still. Around her, curious glances followed like blades, slicing dignity into nearly invisible fragments. Lauren watched with a satisfied smile, the kind that grows from having power over another. "Oh, and the cost of the glasses will be deducted from your paycheck," she added, lifting her chin with pride. The group around her approved with small, complicit chuckles, cruelty disguised as sophistication. The sound of the dustpan scraping the floor became the only real noise in a room where everything else was fake, even the manners. Without lifting her head, Elena displayed something none of them understood. There was firmness in her movements, even beneath the weight of disdain. She knew some battles aren't won with words, but with time, and while everyone else laughed, she stayed silent. The same silence that would one day make the truth echo. The party continued as if nothing had happened. Music filled the space again, and the guests resumed their conversations, pretending the discomfort had vanished. But the atmosphere had shifted. The sparkle of the jewels seemed colder, and the laughter more rehearsed. The incident left an invisible mark on the night, a reminder that power, when used to wound, always exacts its price. Elena finished her duties without ever raising her gaze, gathering every last shard of glass that remained. Each fragment reflected not only the image of the party, but the contrast between two worlds that touched yet never truly met. While the mistress flaunted luxury, the maid carried the weight of survival. They were perfect opposites within the same story. Leaving the mansion, Elena walked toward the bus stop, the echo of Lauren's heels still pounding in her mind. The cold night wrapped the city, and the distant lights on the hill seemed to watch in silence. Something in her had changed. What began as a simple fall of glasses would soon transform entire destinies, and that sound of shattering crystal, it was only the first crack before the turning point. The floor still shimmered with fragments of crystal when Lauren approached, lifting her chin with the sharp elegance of someone used to command. The laughter around her returned, discreet but dripping with venom. "Oh, and the cost of the glasses will be deducted from your paycheck," she said, delivering a blow wrapped in expensive perfume. Her friends laughed, satisfied with the spectacle. Cruelty in that room tasted like champagne. Elena remained on her knees, fingers steady as she gathered each shard, as though she were cleaning her own fate. No tears fell and only silence, heavy and dense. It was the kind of moment when dignity speaks louder than humiliation. The lights of the ballroom reflected on her face, revealing not submission but a quiet strength she didn't even know she carried. And all around her, luxury became nothing more than scenery. Lauren walked slowly, the sound of her heels echoing against the marble like a trail of authority. The diamond earrings swayed beneath the golden light, reflecting her calculated coldness. There was pleasure in every word she spoke, as if the act of hurting had become an art form. "Maybe this will teach you the value of things," she added, her smile like a blade. Each syllable cut deeper than Elena's silence. The guests kept watching, masking their malice behind their glasses and poses. A few pretended discomfort, but none intervened. Such spectacles were far too common among those who feed on appearances. In the corner, a waiter looked away. He knew that in this house, empathy was a luxury no one could afford. The distant sound of the orchestra tried to drown out the collective shame. Elena finished cleaning and rose to her feet, her gaze lowered but her posture firm. Each step she took was a silent act of resistance. She adjusted her apron, took a breath, and returned to work, ignoring the fading laughter. There was no room for retaliation, only endurance. And in that moment, without realizing it, she transformed humiliation into something greater: dignity. Lauren, however, stood prouder than ever. Her expression carried the arrogance of someone who believed she had won the night. The sparkle of her diamonds contrasted with the emptiness in her eyes, a beauty cold, almost mechanical. The ballroom came alive again with music and chatter, yet something had shifted in the air, a subtle tension, as if the luxury itself were ashamed. As the clock marked the end of the evening, the lights began to dim. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the trail of glass shards in the corner remained as a silent reminder of what had occurred, a scene no one would dare mention. Lauren smiled at her friends, toasting to her own image, unaware that the same golden reflection would soon mirror her downfall. Outside, the night air was cold. Elena waited for the bus, her hands still trembling, the scent of her employer's perfume clinging to her uniform. The city lights flickered against the bus window, reflecting fragments of memories she wished to forget. Inside, the world rushed by, but Lauren's words echoed slowly, wounding deeper than the sound of laughter. Back at the Whitmore mansion, silence settled once again, heavy and pristine. Something had shifted in the invisible balance between the two women. One believed she had asserted dominance, the other unknowingly carried the seed of mercy. And time, patient as ever, watched, preparing to turn the tables in a game only destiny knows how to play. The days following the party passed slowly, as if time itself had chosen to punish the silence. The Whitmore mansion, once filled with music and guests, now seemed to breathe out of habit. Lauren walked through the vast corridors in her usual impeccable attire, but her footsteps echoed hollow and directionless. The closed windows reflected a woman who no longer knew how to smile. The glow surrounding her was beginning to lose meaning. Elena kept working quietly, following orders delivered with rehearsed coldness. Each task was done with calm precision, but the atmosphere had changed. Lauren, bitter and restless, seemed to vent her frustrations through small cruelties she could still control. A glass out of place, a towel folded wrong. Any excuse was enough for a look of disdain. Power now weighed heavier than comfort. Conversations between mistress and maid had become rare, punctuated only by short commands and tense glances. Lauren spoke little on the phone, but when she did, her tone swung between nervousness and desperation. No one noticed, but cracks were forming beneath the polished surface. The nights grew longer, filled with secret calls and closed doors. Even the servants began avoiding her path. Elena noticed the difference but never asked. She had learned that some pain doesn't need words to be seen. From a distance, she observed with the calm of someone who had already known humiliation and could recognize the beginning of a fall. With every harsh order, she responded with quiet composure. With every insult, with silence. It was as if she already understood that something greater was coming, something fate was patiently arranging. Lauren, meanwhile, was no longer sleeping well. The faint circles under her eyes betrayed the hours spent before the mirror, muttering to herself or crying softly. The phone rang endlessly, her answers growing shorter and colder. At breakfast, the newspaper headlines made her lips tighten before she folded the page. hiding her fear. The Whitmore empire was starting to crumble, quietly, word by word. In the hallways, the sound of her heels struck like nervous punctuation. Lauren paced back and forth, phone in hand, whispering fragments about contracts, losses, and secrets. Elena cleaned the polished floors, pretending not to hear, though each word became a clue. The mansion's brilliance masked the noise of collapse, like an orchestra playing while the ship sank. The luxury was beginning to crack. One afternoon, Lauren dropped a glass, and whether by accident or design, no one could tell. She looked at Elena, and for a fleeting second, hesitation flickered in her eyes. The arrogance vanished, replaced by something hollow, almost like a plea, but pride quickly reclaimed its place. "Clean that up," she ordered. Elena obeyed without a word. The sound of shattering glass echoed again, but this time it carried a different meaning. The week dragged on, bitter and tense, and silence became the only language between them. The clock in the living room struck each hour with a sharp metallic tone that cut through the air. Elena could sense the shadow growing inside that house, while Lauren clung to an image no one believed in anymore. Outside, the world continued undisturbed. Inside, everything was about to fall apart. That night, as the wind howled and rain began to fall, something stirred in the quiet. Lying in her small apartment, Elena felt a strange intuition, the kind that visits kind souls before the storm. And before dawn could break, destiny was already on its way, carrying the sound of desperate knocks that would soon echo through the night. The night in San Diego slept heavy under the rain. The streets, silent and soaked, reflected the streetlights like broken mirrors. Inside a small apartment, Elena tried to rest after another exhausting day. The sound of the wind against the windows blended with the steady ticking of an old clock on the wall. Everything seemed calm, until 3 sharp knocks echoed against the door. The sound shattered the silence like a muffled scream. Elena awoke, startled, frozen in place as she tried to tell if it was real. Then the knocks came again, louder, desperate, and filled with urgency. Her heart began to race. Who could be knocking at that hour? The rain outside thickened, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, Elena approached the door, her breathing shallow. She peered through the peephole and saw the impossible. On the other side stood Lauren Whitmore, drenched, trembling, and with her makeup streaked down her face. The same woman who had humiliated her in front of everyone was now unrecognizable. Her blonde hair clung messily to her cheeks, and her once proud blue eyes were consumed by panic. "Please open. For God's sake, let me in." Lauren's voice was barely a whisper, trembling between sobs. Elena hesitated, her hand frozen on the doorknob. The echo of cruel laughter replayed in her mind, now clashing with the sight before her. A broken woman begging for shelter. Outside, the rain drummed against the door as if pleading along with her. It felt as though time itself had bent to witness this moment. Lauren fell to her knees in the narrow hallway, her legs soaking in the cold rainwater. Tears blended with the downpour, and her smeared lipstick painted the image of a fallen queen. "I have no one left," she cried, her voice cutting through the stillness of the night. For a heartbeat, Elena felt the weight of all past injustices, and the power of a choice that could change everything. Her heart battled between reason and compassion. The memory of humiliation still burned, but something stronger stirred, a quiet instinct for mercy that refused to die. She took a deep breath, unlatched the door, and faced the woman before her. Lauren, trembling, lifted her gaze like someone staring at their last hope. Between them, only the sound of rain filled the space. As Lauren stepped inside, the air shifted. A mix of cold and desperation filled the small apartment. She wore a torn coat, and the bag slung over her shoulder looked hastily packed with the last remnants of a once luxurious life. Elena watched in silence, unsure if what she saw was real. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something fragile, almost childlike. Elena picked up a towel and handed it to her without a word. Lauren took it with trembling hands, whispering a thank you that sounded more like a plea for forgiveness. The contrast between them was almost poetic. The woman who had everything now seeking refuge in the home of the one who had almost nothing. It was a moment of silent justice, not revenge, but fate correcting itself. As the rain battered the windows and the clock struck 3 a.m., the two women sat in silence. Elena stood watching Lauren curl up on the couch, small and broken, carrying the weight of her own ruin. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, something profound had shifted. For the first time, there was no employer and no servant, only two souls facing the same cold night. And there, in the faint warmth of compassion, destiny exhaled. The cycle that had begun with laughter and humiliation now circled back through tears and humility. What Elena didn't know was that this night would only mark the beginning, a turning point that would test the true limits of forgiveness and courage. The rain stopped just before dawn. The sky, still gray, let a timid light slip through the cracks of the window. Inside the small apartment, silence hung thick, broken only by the distant hum of a passing car and the steady drip from the roof. Lauren slept curled up on the couch, wrapped in a plain blanket. Elena, standing in the kitchen, watched quietly, trying to understand how life could shift so drastically in such a short time. The apartment was modest but warm. The pastel-colored walls held simple stories, framed photos of her son, a small plant by the window, books stacked neatly in a corner. The smell of fresh coffee mingled with the cool morning air. Elena, dressed plainly and looking tired, stirred her cup slowly. For a moment, the scene felt inverted. The housekeeper caring for her fallen employer, power transformed into vulnerability. When Lauren awoke, it took her a few seconds to realize where she was. Her confused gaze swept across the small, humble room, too familiar, too human for her former world. She tried to fix her hair, but gave up halfway through the motion. "Are you sure there's nowhere else to go?" Elena asked gently, her tone firm but not unkind. Lauren shook her head, eyes welling with tears. "My friends won't answer." "No one will." Elena sighed, stepping back slightly, unsure what to feel. The memory of the party still stung, but the sight of the broken woman before her spoke louder than pride. She took a plate, placed a few cookies on it, and slid it toward Lauren. Lauren held the cup with trembling hands, as if gripping the last thread of dignity she had left. For a few seconds, the sound of sipping coffee replaced every word that could have been spoken. The contrast between them was almost poetic. Lauren, stripped of makeup and pride, looked smaller than ever. Her wet coat hung near the window, dripping onto the floor. Elena, though weary, radiated a quiet strength that filled the room. It was as if, within those narrow walls, there existed more humanity than in the entire Whitmore mansion. Grandeur had found a new home, in kindness, not marble. As Lauren drank, she began to speak, fragmented sentences between sobs. She spoke of unanswered calls, of doors closing, of a world that had turned its back overnight. Elena listened in silence, her gaze steady, her hands resting calmly on the table. There was no judgment in her eyes, only patient empathy. The woman who had once been invisible was now the only one who truly saw. At 7 in the morning, the television murmured softly in the kitchen. The reporter's voice sounded distant until one headline in red letters caught Elena's eye. "Whitmore family involved in corruption scandal." She looked toward Lauren, who froze instantly. The cup shook in her hands, spilling coffee down her fingers. "They destroyed everything," she whispered, unable to look at the screen. The silence that followed was different, dense, almost tangible. Elena turned off the television and slowly approached. There was no longer employer and employee, only two women facing a harsh truth. Lauren, pale and trembling, set the cup down and covered her face with her hands. Her ruin now had a shape, and it sat at the kitchen table of the woman she once humiliated. Outside, the sun began to break through the clouds, casting a faint beam of light across the table. Neither spoke. Elena simply picked up a cloth and wiped away the spilled coffee with the quiet care of someone cleaning unseen wounds. Lauren breathed heavily, trying to gather the pieces of herself. And in that silent moment, something rare was born. The first spark of genuine empathy between them, a fragile but undeniable bridge. The morning began with a different kind of silence, the kind that precedes something irreversible. The sun, still shy, filtered through the thin curtains, drawing golden lines across the worn floor of the apartment. Elena washed the dishes in slow, almost mechanical motions, while Lauren sat motionless at the table, holding an empty cup. The coffee had long gone cold, but she didn't seem to notice. Her breathing was shallow, as if the air itself carried too much weight. The television, playing softly in the background, filled the room with muffled voices. Images flashed quickly. Streets, sirens, mansions, reporters. Elena wasn't paying attention until a familiar name sliced through the air like a blade. Whitmore family involved in corruption and money laundering scandal. The words echoed in the small space, as though the entire world had suddenly shrunk around them. Lauren lifted her gaze, her face draining of color as the footage rolled on. The mansion, once a symbol of power and perfection, now appeared surrounded by flashing police lights. Officers carried boxes and documents through the golden gates as reporters shouted questions. The name Whitmore pulsed on the screen in bold red letters. Lauren said nothing. She only clenched the coffee cup until the faint sound of cracking ceramic broke the silence. Elena turned off the faucet and looked over at her. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a trembling mix of fear and disbelief. Lauren tried to speak, but her voice faltered. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what he was doing." Her eyes were hollow, the eyes of someone realizing her life had been built on lies, that the castle made of marble and gold had always been standing on sand. The reporter continued listing details. Figures, shell companies, forged contracts. Lauren trembled, her hands covering her face as quiet tears escaped. The sound of the TV faded into the background, replaced by the hum of heavy silence. Without saying a word, Elena sat across from her. The contrast between them was striking. The simple woman, steady and composed, facing the broken one. Power had officially switched sides. On the edge of the table lay that morning's newspaper, untouched, its headlines screaming the same story. The once respected name now dripped with scandal. Lauren reached out, her trembling fingers brushing over the image of the mansion, a life now burned to ashes. "They destroyed everything," she whispered, unaware that they included her own husband. The truth had spread like wildfire, consuming every piece of denial. The apartment felt smaller, compressed by the weight of the revelation. Elena watched in silence, her eyes steady but kind. There was no satisfaction in witnessing someone's downfall, only the quiet certainty that fate, when patient, is the most precise judge of all. Lauren's breathing grew uneven, each exhale sounding like a wordless plea for forgiveness. The muted TV reflected both women in its dark glass, two worlds colliding in one fragile frame. Outside, the sound of distant sirens echoed through the streets. The scandal had spread everywhere. San Diego itself seemed to whisper the name Whitmore. Inside the apartment, though, time stood still. Lauren looked up and met Elena's gaze, and there was no anger there, only humanity. And in that instant, something subtle shifted. Shame began to transform into remorse, and remorse into the first flicker of redemption. The sun broke through the clouds, casting soft light across their faces. The warmth brushed against Lauren's skin like a quiet reminder that even after ruin, there's room to rebuild. Elena took a slow breath and looked away, unaware that this morning would mark the beginning of another test, one that would challenge not just her compassion, but the true strength of forgiveness. In the days that followed, Elena's apartment became a quiet refuge. Lauren, once used to waking up surrounded by marble and perfume, now found herself in a small space where the sound of the wind in the window frames and the smell of fresh coffee replaced luxury. At first, she barely spoke. She spent hours staring out the window as if waiting for someone to come for her. Maybe her old life, maybe forgiveness. But no one came. Only time, slow and honest, kept moving forward. Elena watched silently. Between cleaning the house, cooking dinner, and caring for her son, she noticed something different in Lauren. The proud sparkle in her eyes was gone. What remained was the shadow of a woman trying to understand who she was without the name, the status, or the masks. Sometimes over coffee, their eyes met briefly, looks that spoke louder than any long conversation could. It was as if both women knew they were living through a shared kind of redemption. One afternoon, as Elena folded laundry, she noticed Lauren trying to help. It was strange at first, seeing her trembling hands trying to fold plain sheets like someone learning a new language. "You don't have to," said Elena gently, but Lauren insisted. "I need to learn to do something right." In that moment, the distance between employer and maid vanished. They were simply two women, each mending an invisible wound. Living together began to soften the days. Lauren, still shy, started doing small chores, washing dishes, sweeping the floor, even preparing tea. Every gesture felt like an unspoken apology, one that Elena accepted not with words, but with quiet grace. The apartment, once heavy with disgrace, now carried something new in the air, the gentle lightness of forgiveness being built. It was the kind of peace that makes no sound, yet transforms everything around it. One night, while Elena's son slept, the two women talked at the table. Lauren spoke softly, confessing how she had spent years trying to be perfect. The model wife, the flawless hostess, the admired woman. But deep down, she lived trapped in a theater of appearances. "I thought being admired was the same as being loved," she said, eyes glistening. Elena listened quietly. That line echoed like a mirror of the modern world, where so many confuse applause for affection. In the following days, the atmosphere in the apartment changed. Lauren no longer cried as often. Elena no longer looked at her with pity, but with respect. They began sharing small joys. The smell of bread baking, Mateo's laughter, the sunset glowing through the window. Simple things, but real. And in that realness, Lauren began to find meaning, the kind that luxury could never provide. It was as if, for the first time, she could breathe without proving anything to anyone. But the past doesn't disappear just because one changes. Lauren still woke up sometimes in a panic, afraid of the police, the newspapers, the stares. Elena noticed, but let silence do its work. There was something in the way she respected Lauren's space. No judgment, no forced comfort, that allowed her to slowly rebuild herself. Elena's kindness wasn't theatrical. It was steady, natural, almost sacred. Then one rainy afternoon came the test. As the sound of rain drummed against the windows, a sudden knock echoed through the room. 3 sharp, urgent knocks. Elena and Lauren exchanged glances. Fear returned instantly. Lauren turned pale, her hands shaking. "If it's the police," she whispered, unable to finish the sentence. Elena took a deep breath and walked toward the door, her heart racing but her expression calm. Sometimes kindness has to be brave. On the other side stood the unexpected. A man in a dark overcoat, serious eyes, and a firm voice. "Detective Harris, I need to speak with Mrs. Whitmore." The words fell like a silent sentence. Lauren froze, and Elena, by instinct, took a step forward. Not as a servant, but as someone who chooses to protect. And in that moment, the echo of mercy was heard. Not through words, but through presence. Detective Harris's presence brought back the weight Lauren had been trying to forget. The rain still fell outside, tracing streaks across the window as his deep voice echoed through the small apartment. "Mrs. Whitmore, your husband is on the run. All family assets have been frozen." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Elena, standing nearby, watched in silence. She knew that somehow the woman before her hadn't yet reached the bottom of her fall. Lauren tried to stay composed, but her trembling hands betrayed her. "I swear I didn't know anything," she said, her voice breaking between desperation and shame. The detective regarded her with a calm, unyielding gaze. "Even so, ma'am, you're legally responsible until proven otherwise." The silence that followed was merciless. Elena looked at Lauren and saw beyond fear a fragile humanity that no amount of luxury had ever managed to hide. Harris wasn't a man of unnecessary cruelty. His eyes carried the steadiness of someone who had seen both the best and worst in people and still believed in truth. He looked around the modest apartment, the few worn-out pieces of furniture, the smell of soap and coffee in the air. "You don't seem like someone used to running," he said quietly, almost to himself. Lauren took a shaky breath, holding back tears. "I'm not running. I just didn't know where else to go." For the first time, her words were stripped bare of any pretense. Elena broke the silence. "She's trying to start over." The detective turned to her, and for a brief second, respect replaced suspicion. There was something about Elena that inspired credibility. Her calm demeanor, her honest gaze. The quiet strength of someone who bears life's weight without collapsing. Harris gave a small nod. "Then I hope she has the courage to keep going. The truth often hurts, but it also sets you free." His words lingered in the room like an omen. When he left, the door closed softly and the apartment fell into absolute silence. Lauren collapsed onto the sofa, her body drained of strength. "I can't go to prison for something I didn't do," she murmured, eyes fixed on the floor. Elena approached and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, a simple but steady gesture. Sometimes the price of innocence is having to prove it exists. Lauren looked up, and in Elena's face she saw the truth she feared most. No one can hide from their own conscience. The following days were marked by a kind of silence that speaks louder than words. Lauren spent hours writing notes, reviewing papers, trying to make sense of the legal storm surrounding her. Elena watched from a distance, helping however she could. Food, shelter, quiet company. The bond between them grew stronger, but so did the tension. How far can compassion go before it becomes complicity? It was a question that hung in the air without an answer. One night, Lauren couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table under the weak light of the lamp, her hands covering her face. Beside her lay the detective's note, a phone number scribbled above a short sentence. "When you're ready, tell the truth." The rain had returned, soft and steady. Elena woke and, seeing her there, approached quietly. "You need to do what's right," she said gently. Lauren nodded faintly, her eyes distant. The fight now wasn't against the law. It was against herself. Hours later, dawn crept in, painting the apartment in shades of gold. Elena woke and saw the empty bed. On the table lay a folded note. "Thank you for seeing me as human." Next to it was the pearl necklace Lauren always wore, the last relic of the world she'd left behind. Elena sat down, her chest tightening, unsure if this was an ending or a beginning. Outside, the muffled hum of the city seemed to whisper back, "The truth may cost you, but it always arrives." As the day broke, Elena opened the window and let the wind in. The curtain fluttered softly, and the cold air carried with it a sense of change. Somewhere out there, Lauren was walking, maybe running, maybe freeing herself. Life, one way or another, would demand its dues. And in the end, both women would have to face their own reflections. Destiny, after all, doesn't forgive, but it always teaches. Days passed like mist. Elena, accustomed to the quiet routine of her small apartment, began to feel the emptiness Lauren had left behind. Every corner of the house seemed to hold a trace of her presence. The sound of a cup placed on the table, the faint perfume in the air, the silence that followed a stifled sigh. Sometimes, while making coffee, Elena found herself staring at the empty chair as if expecting her former employer to return, tired, broken, asking for shelter once more. But she didn't return. Outside, the city carried on with its merciless rhythm. The headlines still bore the Whitmore name, though without the same fervor. Scandals age fast when the public finds a new target to blame. Elena would glance at the news without knowing whether to feel anger, pity, or gratitude for the silence. At night, the wind rattled the windows, and its sound resembled footsteps in the distance, as if Lauren still wandered somewhere nearby, lost between the corridors of memory. A gray Saturday brought an unease Elena couldn't name. The sky hung low, heavy with clouds, and the air was damp. On her way to buy bread, she noticed something on a park bench. A figure curled up under a beige coat, disheveled hair falling over her face. Elena's heart raced. As she approached, she recognized the features. It was Lauren, asleep beneath old blankets, eyes sunken, skin pale. Luxury had vanished, leaving only humanity, raw, fragile, and real. Elena knelt beside her without speaking. She touched Lauren's shoulder gently, and the woman startled awake, whispering her name as if begging for forgiveness. "I had nowhere else to go." Her voice was barely a whisper. Elena met her gaze, steady and calm. "Let's go home," she said simply. The rain began to fall in soft cleansing. Two women beneath the same umbrella, walking back through the storm toward the same destiny. Back in the apartment, Elena prepared hot soup while Lauren, wrapped in a simple blanket, tried to warm herself. "You saved me without even realizing it," Lauren said, her eyes glistening. Elena gave a faint smile. Sometimes saving someone just means staying. The silence that followed was lighter this time, almost peaceful. Perhaps both finally understood that forgiveness isn't a grand gesture. It's simply the choice to keep seeing the other as someone worthy of redemption. In the following days, life found its rhythm again. Lauren began helping with small household tasks, sweeping, cooking, caring for Mateo. The boy, curious, asked questions, and Lauren answered with unexpected tenderness. Elena watched the transformation unfold quietly. The woman who once hid behind jewels and appearances now rediscovered herself in the simplest acts. There was beauty in watching a fall become a seed, and guilt, the raw material of change. But the past doesn't sleep for long. One evening, as the news murmured names and dates, Lauren stood up abruptly. "He's still out there," she said, referring to Charles. Her tone carried guilt, but also resolve. Elena noticed a different light in her eyes, the kind that precedes courage. "Maybe it's time to stop running," Lauren said, her voice firm. Elena nodded. Sometimes true repentance is born not from sorrow, but from confrontation. That night they stayed awake, planning. Lauren decided she would hand over the documents she had, evidence that could expose her husband's crimes. Fear was still present, but purpose had replaced panic. "If I must fall, let it be for doing what's right," she said, calm and determined. Elena took her hand. "Sometimes falling is the only way to truly rise." The words lingered in the air, blending with the sound of distant rain and the rhythm of two steady hearts. When the sun rose, the apartment was silent yet full of meaning. Lauren stood by the window, her face bathed in golden morning light. Behind her, Elena prepared coffee. Neither spoke. There was nothing left to explain. Fear, guilt, and hope now shared the same space. And in the reflection on the glass, two silhouettes seemed to merge. The woman who had fallen and the woman who never stopped believing that it was still possible to begin again. The city awakened to the murmur of headlines. Cameras lined up outside the central police station, and the name Lauren Whitmore was once again on every screen, but this time it carried a different tone. What had once been synonymous with scandal now echoed with courage. Inside a parked car across the street, Lauren watched the crowd through the fogged glass. Her hands trembled on her lap, and in the reflection, she saw a face she no longer fully recognized, the face of a woman who had lost everything and yet gained something greater. Elena sat beside her in silence. There were no bosses or employees anymore, only two women bound by truth. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly, her voice steady but serious. Lauren took a deep breath, the cold air cutting through her chest. For the first time, "Yes." Elena's gaze carried the calm understanding of someone who knows that courage only blooms when fear finally runs out of space. The moment had come to face the ghosts in the light of day. As Lauren stepped out of the car, the flash of cameras shattered the damp morning air. She walked slowly, surrounded by reporters, but refused to lower her head. Each step sounded like an act of liberation. Her beige coat swayed with the wind, her hair loose, revealing the exhaustion of sleepless nights. Voices clamored around her. "Betrayed or accomplice? Lauren, what do you have to say about your husband?" But she didn't respond. There was nothing left to defend, no lies to hide behind, only the decision to tell the truth. Inside the interrogation room, the atmosphere was cold and sterile. Gray walls reflected the harsh white light pouring from the ceiling. Detective Harris waited for her, his calm eyes carrying more humanity than any lawyers ever could. "Are you ready to talk?" he asked. Lauren nodded. In front of her lay a pile of documents, folders, and recordings, fragments of an empire built on deceit. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, as if exercising her past. "My husband ran," she said, "but I didn't." For hours she told everything, the secret meetings, the hidden accounts, the names never spoken aloud. Each word was an unburdening, and every pause a breath that weighed less. The detective wrote occasionally, but more often he simply listened, because some truths can't be confined to paper. When it was over, silence filled the room like a living thing. Outside, Elena waited, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the door. Time seemed to stop there, not passing, just existing. When the door finally opened, Lauren emerged, transformed. The weight on her shoulders remained, but the guilt had lifted. Reporters crowded the entrance, cameras flashing, voices rising. Yet when they saw her expression, calm and clear, a hush rippled through the chaos. Elena stepped forward and embraced her. "You did the right thing," she whispered. Lauren's eyes glistened. "You taught me how." It was a meeting of souls, a kind of redemption words can't capture. That same night, a television network aired an exclusive interview. Lauren appeared before the cameras, simple and unadorned. No makeup, no jewels, just truth. Her voice trembled but did not falter. "For years I lived surrounded by gold and fear. Today I choose truth even when it hurts. Money can buy silence but never peace." The words struck deep. At home, Elena watched, her heart tightening with quiet pride. The kind of pride that doesn't shout, only feels. The days that followed were filled with hearings, statements, and long waits. Lauren stayed firm, cooperating with every step. The same society that once applauded her arrogance now watched her through different eyes. No longer the haughty woman from lavish parties, but a human being who had learned humility through loss. Elena remained close, discreet, and steady. like a protective shadow. Amidst the noise of the world, their friendship bloomed in the fragile soil of truth. When the final verdict came, acquittal for lack of intent and full cooperation, Lauren didn't celebrate. She simply took a deep breath, as if breathing for the first time in years. Outside, the sun shone brighter than ever, and for once she walked without hurry. Elena stood waiting on the sidewalk, arms crossed, a gentle smile on her face. "It's over," Lauren said. "No," Elena replied, looking toward the horizon. "It's just beginning." And between them, a new kind of hope began to rise. The months following Lauren's acquittal felt like a slow spring after a brutal winter. Nothing returned to what it once was, and strangely, that was a relief. The luxury, the cars, the parties, the jewels, all of it now seemed distant, almost meaningless. Mornings began with simple coffee and sincere conversation. There was a new kind of silence in the air. Not the silence of guilt, but the peace that comes when you finally learn to live lightly. Elena continued to work, but something inside her had changed too. She no longer cleaned other people's houses out of necessity, but out of choice, while helping Lauren build something greater. Together, they began to envision a foundation for women in vulnerable situations, especially those who, like Elena, had been invisible for far too long. The project was born out of purpose, not prestige. And for the first time, both women felt they were leaving behind something that truly mattered. The small room where it all began was modest. White walls, a wooden desk, and a handmade poster bearing the foundation's name, Restart. The first meetings were fueled by cheap coffee and hope. Lauren, once a master of lavish galas, now spent her days planning donation drives. Elena handled the human side, listening to stories, comforting tears, turning pain into plans. In that space, hierarchy ceased to exist. Power was shared and value was redefined. They worked tirelessly but joyfully. Every woman they helped was a victory. Every smile a reminder that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but in lives touched. Lauren often found herself in tears as she listened to the women's stories of survival.
"They're stronger than they realize," she said softly.
Elena smiled, knowing the truth of those words. After all, she too had once been a woman who doubted her own strength. Over time, the foundation grew. Volunteers arrived, journalists came, and even some of Lauren's former acquaintances visited, drawn by curiosity, leaving with respect. What had once been a scandal now became a story of transformation. The media loved the contrast, but to Lauren it wasn't glamour, it was purpose. Elena, now the foundation's manager, became its heartbeat. Her leadership was quiet but unwavering, gentle but firm. People trusted her the moment they met her. One morning, while reviewing reports, Lauren paused by the window of their new office. Simple, but full of life. Outside, she saw women walking with their children, laughing, rebuilding what once felt lost. "This is wealth," she murmured. Elena looked up from her desk. "Yes," she said, "and the best part is no one can take it away." The glance they exchanged said everything. There was no longer a boss or an employee, just two souls who had learned the meaning of starting over. The foundation's impact began to spread. New branches were being planned, partnerships forming, and stories of resilience were making headlines. Still, Lauren and Elena refused to lose their essence, human connection. No email replaced a hug. No spreadsheet explained the importance of truly listening. In every woman who walked through those doors, they saw reflections of themselves, wounded but not broken, tired but still alive. Then came the invitation, a public award ceremony recognizing their work. The event would be held in a grand auditorium, broadcast nationwide. When Lauren read the letter, her throat tightened. "Do you realize what this means?" she asked. Elena replied with quiet conviction. "It means the world is finally listening to what the heart always knew." It was the closing of one chapter and the beginning of another, even more beautiful one. On the eve of the event, they stayed late at the office reviewing speeches and final details. The air felt lighter, almost magical. Lauren looked at Elena and said softly, "I never thought I'd find redemption, but maybe it had your name all along." Elena smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Life has a strange way of teaching us. Sometimes we have to lose everything to learn how to give what truly matters." Outside, the city slept, but their future had just awakened. The auditorium was full, bathed in golden light that shimmered across the faces of a silent, curious crowd. Cameras flashed, murmurs filled the air. But there was something different about that night. A kind of quiet reverence. On the big screen behind the stage, images of the foundation played. Smiling women, running children, stories of rebirth. Lauren, dressed simply yet elegantly, stood backstage, her hands trembling, her heart pounding. For the first time, the stage didn't frighten her. It called her toward something real. Elena sat in the front row beside Matteo, who watched his mother with glowing pride. She wore a modest blue dress, her curls neatly tied back, her expression calm and kind. When the host announced Lauren's name, the audience rose in applause. The former millionaire took a deep breath, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the crowd. The same gaze that once judged now searched for gratitude. The silence that followed felt sacred. Not long ago, Lauren began, I believed wealth was measured by what one owned. Her voice quivered, but not from fear, from emotion. Today I know that true wealth is measured by what one gives. A soft murmur of approval rippled through the room. The lights reflected in her tearful eyes, and her vulnerability disarmed even the most skeptical. Each word carried the weight of a lifetime spent trying to be someone, until she finally learned to be human. Lauren's gaze found Elena in the audience, who smiled gently. The woman I once made clean my carpet, she continued, voice trembling, is the one who cleaned my soul. The audience stood again, moved to tears. Some wept openly, others simply watched in silence, touched by the purity of her confession. It was as if, in that instant, forgiveness had taken visible form. A bridge between pain and healing built before everyone's eyes. The main camera zoomed in on Lauren's face, capturing the quiet tears that fell between soft smiles. I laughed at the wrong person, she said. And fate made sure I learned the hard way that arrogance is the shortest road to loneliness. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment before opening them again with new light. But I also learned that forgiveness is the most precious return life can offer. Applause erupted, long, thunderous, liberating. Elena slowly rose and walked toward the stage. Lauren, surprised, took a step forward. The two women looked at each other, a look that held years of shared transformation. Elena extended her hand and Lauren took it. The stage lights brightened, surrounding them in a soft, symbolic glow. The crowd roared, and for an instant, time seemed to stand still. Two women from opposite worlds, now side by side, united by something greater than the past. Matteo, grinning from the front row, began to clap even louder, and soon the entire auditorium joined in. That sound, echoing, embracing, alive, felt like the roar of liberation itself. Lauren turned to Elena, and in a spontaneous moment, they both laughed. A simple human laugh filled with relief and love. It was a laugh that washed away the remnants of pride and guilt, cleansing the story itself. The sound of forgiveness, pure, crystalline, eternal. Cameras captured the moment perfectly. The two women's smiles, the standing crowd, the stage lights reflecting off tears of joy. That image would become the symbol of their foundation, printed in newspapers and broadcast on television, the day a millionaire and a housekeeper taught the world about humanity. Elena looked at the crowd and said softly, "Power isn't about controlling, it's about understanding." The room erupted once more in applause, and Lauren embraced her tightly. As the event drew to a close, the stage remained lit by a single golden beam. The two stood there side by side, watching the audience disperse with smiles and tearful eyes. It was the end of one journey and the beginning of another, quieter, truer. The laughter of forgiveness lingered in the air, soft and infinite like the echo of eternity. And beneath it all, one truth remained clear. Sometimes you must lose everything to finally find yourself. In the end, the story of Lauren and Elena isn't really about wealth, power, or regret. It's about humanity. About that moment when life dismantles everything we thought we knew, only to rebuild what truly matters. Forgiveness doesn't rewrite the past, but it completely transforms the future. How many times have you held on to pride and missed your chance to begin again? Maybe just like Lauren, what you lack isn't strength. It's the courage to look inward and finally laugh at the version of yourself that once believed it was untouchable. And if this story stirred something inside you, maybe it's time to act. Start by forgiving someone, or perhaps by forgiving yourself. True freedom begins when pain stops being a burden and becomes a lesson. And if you want to keep learning about empathy, transformation, and the power of second chances, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story is a mirror, and in every mirror, an invitation to change your life.